right. Thank you for watching Eastern Volleyball Network. My name's Graham Wren. Kevin Knight is unable to join us this evening. I'm bringing you the wrap-up video for the January TVA Indoor Sand Big Money Tournament, January 30th on the men's side. First of all, thanks to everyone who came out. It was really a great event. Thank you, TVA. Thank you, Dexter Powers, for putting on a great event. It ran very smoothly. Hopefully we'll keep getting a strong turnout for these tournaments. Great place to play. Great place to compete, and I think we really had a strong atmosphere. TVA was live streaming most of the day, which was awesome. So if you haven't been, definitely come to TVA and check us out. And if you're local to the area and have been and decided that this wasn't for you, hope to see you at the next one. Without further ado, I'm going to run through the overall placement from this past weekend. First place, Brett Rosenmeyer, Nick Drucker. Second place, David Arnold, Andrew McMurray. Third place, Luke Parks and Matt McLaren. And then myself and Sean Regglesworth. Fifth place, Dalton Bundy, Cortland Scherenborg, and Cam Rodriguez, James Moyer. Seventh place, Misha Freistater and Joey Pate Giuseppe. Not the other seventh place was Robert Vic Pond and John Agroy. Ninth place, Travis Graven, Ryan Ludvik, Gene Wade, Aaron Campbell, Matt Hazel, Mauricio Reese. I may have switched those up. I'm not entirely sure, but those are their first and last names. And then Tommy Spielman, James Morton. 13th place was Brian Conacher, Josh Lanier, the Monasterly Bros, Zach Tucker, Carson Strawbridge, Zach Palmer, Ethan Best, and then the two seventh place finishes, Zach Martin, Eugene DeJesus, and Francis Becknell and Josh Bender. I'll start by I'm going to run through each round of the bracket and talk about kind of notable events. Spielman and Morton beat Ethan and Zach, no problem. In the other game, Zach Martin, Eugene DeJesus, Francis Becknell, Josh Bender. Looked like our prediction was going to hold true. Francis and Josh rolled in set one. And then Zach and Eugene made some adjustments and came out and mopped the floor with them set two. And then ended up, winning relatively convincingly in three, if that's a thing. On Francis and Josh's side, a little too much going on too. A little, kind of lack of crispness and consistency inside out. And Eugene and Zach were able to take advantage and get the win. Round of 16, Cam Rodriguez, James Moyer beat Josh Lanier and Brian Conacher. Pretty much everything in the round of 16 held chalk, except Dalton Bundy and Cortland Scherenborg held chalk, but it was a significantly tighter match against Travis Graven, Ryan Ludvik than anticipated. I believe set one, they won 28-26 and then won like 21-19 in the second. So, Travis and Ryan, shout outs to them for, really coming to play and giving them everything they had. And, from a physicality standpoint, definitely outpunched their weight against those two. So great job, guys. But Dalton and Cortland did win in the end. Next round, yours truly did get the victory over Misha Freistater and Joe Pate and Giuseppe. Secured the friend request, which was huge for me. Shed a small tear after the victory. All in all, it was a close match. Did go three. We, definitely was a nail biter down to the end. I think we won 15-12 in the third. At 12-12, there was a hands call on Joey Pate that was controversial to them. Not controversial to us or anybody watching, but it was controversial to them. And then unfortunately they weren't able to bounce back and we ended up winning 15-12. Luke Parks and Matt McLaren, rolled without much further ado. Same with Dave Arnold and Andrew McMurray. Dalton and Cortland against Brett and Nick. Cortland played really, really well this match. Dalton kind of came down with a little bit of cramps, struggled at times in areas, and I think it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if Dalton didn't cramp. But Nick and Brett ended up being victorious. Then moving on to the round of 4 in the winner's side, David and Andrew beat Sean and I pretty convincingly. I want to say 21-16, 21-16, something like that, maybe 17 the second one. But it definitely felt like they were in control the entire time. They definitely dissected us as a whole and kind of took advantage of some flaws in our games that that led to giving up some easy points and giving away some opportunities. On the other side, Nick and Brett had a tough time in this round against Luke and Matt. Went to 3, ended up winning the third. I want to say either 15-12 or 15-13. So another tight game, another tight set. But they ended up being victorious. Now I'm going to move on to the losers bracket. So this is where things really got interesting. Eugene and Zach against Ethan Best and Zach Palmer. Ethan Best and Zach Palmer came out on top. From what I was looking, where I was watching, it kind of looked like Eugene and Zach fell apart. I don't think that, my 2 cents is I don't think they're a great fit together. I think they both, kind of a typical successful partnership. When you think about kind of classic big little partners, you have a big who's bringing a lot of power, and then you have a little guy who's bringing a lot of ball control, a lot of finesse, a lot of shots. And something that kind of characterizes that partnership is that the little guy is often bettering the touch of the bigger guy, if that makes sense. Like, big guy has, maybe has a decent pass, but not the best pass, and the little guy puts him right where he needs to be, right? Or the little guy has, passes absolute nails, right? And makes the big guy's job setting a lot easier, so that he stays in the system. And that's kind of part of the characteristics of one of those partnerships. And I think that they would both benefit from playing with a more tried and true defender. So they both kind of fit that role of the bigger, more physical guy. It didn't quite click in this match, and Ethan and Zach were able to win with a lot of heart, a lot of hustle plays. It was really rewarding to see. Other 17th place match, Spielman and Morton rolled pretty convincingly over Francis and Josh. Hopefully we'll see Francis and Josh back down in February. I think, despite their finish, they had a good time. They stuck around till the end of finals, which is always nice, adds to the atmosphere. Hopefully they'll go back to the drawing board a little bit, get some more training in, and then come back down in a month and be ready to rock and roll. Round of 13, Travis Graven, Ryan Ludwig rolled over Ethan Best and Zach Palmer. Gene Wade and Aaron Campbell played Zach Tucker, Carson Strawbridge, and I would have predicted Zach and Carson to get this one relatively, I'm not going to say easily, but I would have expected them to get it kind of based on Carson's hustle and being able to put some balls away around Gene's block. And Gene and Aaron got the win in 3, which was really nice to see. I want to say 15-12 in the third. Hazel and Reese took care of the Modest Hurley Bros. And then Josh Lanier, Brian Conacher ran into Spielman and Morton, and Spielman and Morton were victorious kind of as we predicted. Next we had Ryan Ludwig, Travis Graven ran into Misha Freystater and Joe Pate. And this, again, we talked about Travis and Ryan kind of out-punching their weight physically. And, they did this again. Misha's a big 6'7" at the net. Ryan is probably 5'10", Travis at like 6'2", and they took Misha and Joe to 3. It was 15-13 in the third, a very fiery match, and it came down to 13 serving 14 for the match, and it was not a clean side out to finish. Ended up turning into a scramble point where the ball went back and forth, probably 3-4 times over the net each way, and then Misha, I was sitting right there, and I thought that Ryan and Travis were about to get the point on I think Misha peeled and had kind of a touch, and the ball went past the back line, and I thought, okay, that this point's over. And then Joey Pate ran all the way back there and threw up a ball back to the net, from 30 plus feet. Misha went and hit kind of a scud missile that I think was going to land in the last 2 feet of the court, and that was all she wrote. Next match, another 9th place game. I think I didn't get to see this one, but I believe Cam and James Moyer rolled over Gene and Aaron. Dalton and Cortland rolled over Hazel and Reese, and then Spielman and Morton against Vic Pond and Ryan was really, really interesting to watch. In the prediction video, I kind of talked about how Spielman and Morton, struggled to do a lot of the little things, and it really showed in this match. All the credit in the world to Robert and John. They were a very undersized team against a relatively physically imposing team of Spielman and Morton, both hitting heavy balls. And kind of the story of the match was there were a fair amount of balls that James and Tommy went up to hit, and Robert and John were in a no block situation. Not necessarily because the set was that bad, but because I guess part of their game plan was they were going to make teams swing a lot and earn a lot of points by swinging, and then just kind of found ways to get balls up. And then on the flip side of things, they found ways to side out when they were not in traditional offensive situations, which at their height is kind of difficult. And I feel like not to discredit their shots, but I feel like it came down to James and Tommy not having a strong enough fundamental peel defense footwork, and then also defensive footwork in general, where just from my observance, it looked like there were they did a good job of hitting the ball to open space, but it felt like balls that should get cleaned up and should end up turning into strong offensive opportunities for Tommy and James, but instead turned into kills for Robert and John. And I think that was kind of the story of that match. Rob and John 1 and 2. 7th place game, we had Misha Freystater, Joe Pate, James Moyer, Cam Rodriguez, and kind of continuing the theme that we've talked about so far of smaller teams kind of out-punching their weight. James and Cam ended up taking this match in 3. Won the first, lost the second, and then won the third, which, given that Cam is 5'10", and James is probably 5'10", was pretty astounding. Joe Pate's sitting there at 6'2", maybe 6'3". Misha at 6'7", and they managed to get that W. Other 7th place match, Cortland Scherenborg, Dalton Bundy against Vic Pond and John Aguirre. This one was pretty wild too. I mean, Dalton and Cortland won game 1, not super convincingly, either 21-18 or 19, but they were, you would look over and they were doing very physical things against a team that was often pulling and playing no block defense. But they won game 1. They were up 15-9 or something like that in game 2. And then at one point they were down like 17-15 in game 2, which was pretty crazy that Vic Pond and Aguirre staged that kind of comeback, especially without, much of a block presence, and, kind of did it through a lot of hustle, a lot of heart, and converted some defensive opportunities. But Cortland and Dalton ended up being too much in 1 and 2. 5th place match, Luke Parks, Matt McLaren just kind of out physical James Moyer and Cam Rodriguez into pretty run-of-the-mill match. I mean, James and Cam gave it everything they had, but at the end of the day, Luke and Matt were just too big. I definitely want to take a good amount of time to talk about my match against Dalton and Cortland. It was a very intense, very emotional match. High intensity, got very heated at times, but at the same time, the entire time it was a heated but respectful kind of tone to the match, if that makes sense. They came out game 1. I struggled a lot in serve receive. They kind of rolled over us. And then we came out in games 2 and 3, and we won 2 very tight, very hotly contested sets. There were a couple different points in the match when things got testy. There was a joust play where Cortland thought I was in the net. I didn't feel a net. The ref didn't see a net, so we didn't call a net. But Cortland was pretty upset that in his mind I wasn't honor calling my nets, which is kind of I feel like the standard thing that we're expected to do when we don't have professional referees. It's often one guy sitting in a chair reffing a match who's trying to watch individual contacts, trying to watch whether the ball hits in or out, trying to watch all these things, and seeing nets sometimes is not the easiest thing to do. So that's kind of the expectation, is that you call your own nets. So kind of the tensions in the match escalated a good bit from there. We had a controversial play where I kind of pride myself on knowing the rules, and I was misinformed about a rule. Apparently, if an attack hits off the block, the second touch, as long as it is quote unquote reactionary, does not have to be particularly clean or anything like that. And it was a situation where I felt like a double definitely should have been called. But I guess in the referee's view, it was a reactionary play, so it was fine, and they ended up winning the point. But we did pause and brought the tournament director over and kind of went through that whole process. 16-18 in the second set. We were down 16-18. They served, pass set. Set kind of got pushed towards the antenna. I went up and pokeyed over the block and missed the sideline by about 2 inches. And kind of all the credit to Cortland's character in the world, because from his perspective, he felt like we weren't honor calling our nets, and in that moment, I don't know if the ref saw it and called it, because I didn't see exactly how events played out. But long story short, Cortland honor called his net, even though he felt like we were not honor calling our nets, and he did it at a critical juncture in the match. Switching 19-16 versus 18-17 is absolutely massive. So I think that speaks to his character a lot, and really appreciated for sure. We ended up winning set 2 in extras. 24-22 or 25-23. I don't exactly remember, but it was another hotly contested set. Then we went to 3, and we trailed for a good bit of set 3. Then pulled ahead just in time. If you go to Lindsay Regglesworth's Facebook page, she was live streaming our matches, and you can get score updates as good guys versus bad guys, us being the good guys, obviously. Shout outs to Lindsay. But we ended up getting to a point where we were receiving at 13-14, and Sean went up and spatched a ball off of the block for our 15th point, and we ended up winning. what definitely for us and for them as well was a physically and emotionally draining match. One of the more competitive matches I've been a part of in my career. So greatly appreciated, guys. Love to see it. And I think we all love to be out there competing, and we would all love to come out on top every time in those matches. But I think at the end of the day, it's matches like that, which is why we do what we do and why we play. So thank you for the privilege of, I want to thank Dalton and Cortland for giving us the privilege to be a part of that match. Hope to see you at the next hope to run into you at the next tournament, but also don't, because, everyone wants an easier road, and they were definitely a challenge, and we just barely happened to come out on top this time. Moving on to the semi. In semifinal number 1, Andrew McMurray and Dave Arnold beat Luke and Matt. I didn't get to see it, but I believe it was relatively convincing. Isn't the word, but they did it in 2. I don't think there was much doubt throughout the match. I think that mostly had a lead and held it. Finished before we did, so we got to stick around and ref. Our semifinal match against Brett and Nick went 21-18, 21-19. We played with as much fire as we had at that point, but ended up coming up short. So all the credit in the world to Nick and Brett there. And then in the final, Nick and Brett won a hotly contested first set, I believe 26-24. Might have been 27-25. A very, very side-out heavy match. Not a lot of blocks or digs. Kind of everyone there was benefiting from the other team not necessarily having maybe a true blocker at the net. Both teams were split blocking. So when you have kind of defenders or undersized blockers at the net, there's a lot more court to swing at, and shots are that much crisper. And the the side out heavy nature of the match kind of reflected that. Set 2, Andrew and Dave kind of ran out of gas a little bit. It was tied like 12-12, and then they switched at like 15-13, and then it kind of got to like 17-15, and then 19-15, and I think they switched at 19-16, earned another reel to go up 20-16, or decided out to go up 20-16, and then had an opportunity to score a reel to win 21-16, ended up not getting it and siding out 21-17 to win set 2. So congrats to Nick and Brett, especially Brett for those hit workouts coming in clutch. Definitely did not fade as the day went on. Train kept on rolling. It's good to see. That's kind of the recap of what happened. In other news, Kevin owes me sushi dinner, which is great. Big shout out to James Moyer, Francis, and Josh for, in my opinion, being the number 1 fans there in the final. James was definitely enjoying all that the TVA bar had to offer, and was heckling everybody. No one was safe, myself included as the ref. Which was always good to see. Everyone enjoys a good heckle. Had a pretty good crowd atmosphere for the final, which was nice. So yeah, that's kind of all she wrote for that event. Hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Thanks for watching Eastern Volleyball Network. Like and subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. And if you want to be a part of one of our videos, if you've got some ideas, reach out to us. I think we've demonstrated a couple times, we love to bring some other people onto the show. Matt Helmick is becoming somewhat of a regular for events down in the North and South Carolina. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing, if you want to make an appearance, you think you've got something to add, reach out. We'd love to have you. Thanks for watching Eastern Volleyball Network, and I'll see you boys next time.